We will go ahead and get started. If you are here at one of our events for the first time or for the first time in a long time, I'm Larry Gennari, and I'm from Gennari Aronson. We curated this event. We are a law firm serving innovative companies, entrepreneurs, through all stages of growth, from innovation to execution to IPO and M&A. So we are delighted to present this business Authors and Innovators Business Ideas Festival. It is inspired by and curated for so many of the entrepreneurial companies and innovative businesses and innovative thinkers who we serve. So I'm delighted that we could do this. We always tell folks, and this is certainly a shared passion of all of our other sponsors, that our first job is to help people be successful. And this Business Ideas Forum is really a commitment to that ideal. We have a number of folks who are going to be able to help us tonight, and our Business Ideas Festival could not have been possible except for the generous support of our sponsors, who I want to thank individually. Doug Banks from the Boston Business Journal is here. Hello, Doug. Welcome. Folks know the Boston Business Journal. BNY Mellon, Brenda Travellini and her team. Brenda is here as well. For folks who don't know BNY Mellon Wealth Management, they're one of the nation's top wealth managers, combining the strengths of a global financial leader with the care and commitment of a small firm. BNY draws on leadership in all wealth management disciplines, offering an extensive range of resources that are customized to serve the unique needs of each client. Firefield and Adam McGowan. Firefield is a boutique consultancy and premier design and development shop focused on creating new ventures, building technology products, and inspiring innovators to pay it forward. Adam's also the curator of the Spark Series, which is a series of lunch and after-work events for innovators who understand the concept of paying it forward. And you can find them at firefield.com. Telamon. We've got John Snyder and his team here. Telamon Insurance is an innovative, independent insurance agency dedicated to helping folks in a wide range of insurance, employee benefits, HR, and HR solutions. Telamon Insurance, TelamonINS.com. Ty Boston, Laura Teichner's here. Welcome, Laura, and thank you. Ty Boston, since 1997, Ty Boston has been supporting entrepreneurs by offering education, mentorship, networking, and funding opportunities. They were the sponsor of Startup Con just a couple of weeks ago, which drew, I'm sure, over 1,000 people if they were all there that day, perhaps even more the day before. BostonTy.org. And of course, we also want to thank our supporting independent bookseller, Wellesley Books. Jane is in the back and will be helping us as we welcome our guest and introducing you to him so that you can purchase a book and have it signed. And of course, it couldn't be an Authors and Innovators conference without some innovators. And we have a number of them featured with some of their materials in the back tonight. And I'd like my partner, Neil Aronson, to introduce a couple of our featured innovators tonight. And Neil is... You're going to introduce our featured innovators tonight.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'll move towards the middle. Our first innovator actually is not here tonight, but you've already partaken of some of their food. That is Vermont Farmstead Cheese, which is a premier cheese company based out of Vermont, of course, not to be confused. BFC, not to be confused with KFC. And you can learn more about them on their website. The second company I'd like to introduce tonight is Curated. Terry Mullen is here. Terry, stand up, maybe so everyone knows who you are. And there's descriptions of all of our innovators here in the program. If you're interested in what Curated does, check out their website and speak to Terry. And thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you, Neil. There's a quote on the board as you came up that I think reflects our philosophy and reflects really the commitment of so many people here tonight. It's from John Gardner's book, and I think 1964 was sort of the first printing of it. Self-renewal, the individual, the innovative society. And The quote on the board, I think, sums it up. And this is a forum for those who contribute a new way of doing, but also those who contribute a new way of thinking. That is, those people who drive creativity and change in the business world. And I can't think of a more fitting keynote and a more fitting author to introduce us to the forum and to introduce us to his terrific book, where he'll talk more about that. So I hope you'll join me in welcoming Bob Reynolds. Bob is the president and CEO of Putnam Investments and Great West Financial, which includes Empower Retirement, the nation's largest provider of retirement services to over 8 million retirement savers. Prior to Putnam, Bob was vice chairman and COO of Fidelity Investments, where he took charge of Fidelity's then small 401k business and grew it more than 100-fold. Bob, as many of you know, is really a hands-on pioneer in developing 401k plans into the prime source of Americans' future retirement income. Also a proud son of West Virginia and a graduate of West Virginia University. So just delighted to have Bob here. Let's talk a little bit about From Here to Security. For folks who have not seen this, it is in the back and available for purchase and signature, of course. So Bob, let's talk a bit more about From Here to Security. Why did you write this book?
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I've spent 3 decades in the retirement area, and it's a passion and something I care very much about, because what it does is provide a dignified, financially secured retirement for millions of Americans. And the United States over the last 30 years really has transformed from a defined benefit society to a defined contribution. And it's called workplace savings. It has many numbers of the tax code, 401k, 403b, not profit, 457 government, so it has many letters, but it's workplace savings. And it has become, again, America's retirement system. And so through the book, wanted to talk about America's retirement and how to optimize it for all working Americans.
Bob, you've got some terrific statistics in the book. One of the things I enjoyed most is you really take us on a journey from where we started Social Security all the way through. Americans seem to have a tough time saving. Remember the Will Rogers quote, how can you possibly make a huge amount of money? How can you double your income? Or how can you double your cash? And the answer is to fold it in half and put it back in your pocket. Why do we have?
That's one way.
Why do we have such trouble saving?
Well, I think the great thing about the system, workplace savings, is it makes it so much easier to save. And if you think about America's retirement system, there's a public system, which is Social Security, which is important, again, to millions of working Americans, an important part of a lot of people's retirement. Then there's a private system, workplace savings. And people that take advantage of workplace savings, and right now it covers 60% of working Americans, and we'll talk about the other 40, but if people have access to workplace savings, 70% of them sign up for retirement. Okay. If they have automatic enrollment, which was a feature that came out of the 2006 Pension Protection Act, 90% save for retirement. And then you add other features, advice, different things like that, and automatic escalation where you start ratcheting up how much you're saving. The goal is to get to 10% plus. You have a system that's providing more than 100% income replacement at retirement. And that is an admirable goal, I think, for every retirement plan and every plan sponsor, every company, to have this type of benefit structure for their employees.
You talk about it as a retirement challenge in the book, and you don't use the word crisis. You say
Right.
It's not a crisis, it's a challenge. Why?
Well, the Pension Protection Act of 2006, which I talked about, and when you go back, 401k first came out in the late 70s, 1978, and they didn't refine what the rules were to 1984. But its first name was the Salary Reduction Plan. Okay, who wants to sign up for salary reduction?
They're not great marketing.
No, not great. So the system expanded from there, and again, it was supplemental at first. That was the intention. Many smaller companies, newer companies had it as their retirement plan. And over time, what you saw are major institutional companies like a GM, GE had savings plans sitting next to their defined benefit. They converted that to 401k. And then over time, it just became America's retirement system. The reason why it is not a crisis is through the Pension Protection Act, automatic enrollment, automatic escalation, and then making target date funds, lifestyle funds they're called, they're age-appropriate investment vehicles, as a default option. What you set on path is millions of Americans today are on track to replace 100% of their income they earn while working in retirement.
You call Social Security a bedrock in your book.
It is.
We've talked a lot about 401k. Why isn't Social Security enough?
Well, right now, the median's around 40% income replacement, and that's not enough. And so it takes Social Security plus personal savings. And again, to workplace savings where you do payroll deduction. And it's interesting, the government figured out the benefit of payroll deduction before anyone else. Social Security, taxes, where you don't see it, it's paid. And that's been one of the attractive features of workplace savings, that it comes out right now pre-tax, and it do payroll deduction, and people don't feel it as much.
So it sounds like 401k is becoming bedrock as well. Let me go back to Social Security a bit and talk about that. Your book is one of the more optimistic books. We read book after book that says Social Security is in crisis.
It's realistic, not optimistic.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Is Social Security in trouble, Bob?
Social Security has challenges. 30 years ago, it was 15 workers for one retiree. Today, it's two workers for one retiree. It's on track to be a problem for this country in the early 2030s. If they don't change Social Security, benefits will have to be cut around 25%. And that doesn't work. So it takes political courage to go after Social Security. It's, the third rail of politics. Yeah. Right. But something needs to be done. And it is a math problem. It's not like Medicare, where very complicated. This is a math problem. It has revenue and expenditures. And you have to adjust either both of them or one of them. There's actually a website where there's 71 ways to fix Social Security. And I think they could go to one or two of them.
One would think. And why is that, Bob? Because this has been an obvious problem for a long while. You talk a little bit about this in the book. What are some of the one or two, because you talk about it in the book as one of the ways to make sure we've got workplace retirement savings in place. What are the one or two things that are obvious to you as you talk about in the books to fix Social Security?
Well, right now, Social Security cuts off at 112,000 income, and whereas Medicare goes all the way up to your total income. So that's one way to do it. Retirement age, interesting. When Social Security first came out, you collected your benefits at 65. Average life expectancy was 62. You don't need an actuary to help you out here. But right now, if an American male lives to be 65, the probability they're going to live to be 86, women are actually higher than that. So you got to look at retirement age, you got to look at income coming in. There's talks of mean testing it, like it doesn't mean as much to someone that has the money as someone that hasn't really saved. So there are a lot of things to do. It was disappointing in this presidential race where they took, both parties took entitlements off the table. And that can't last.
A lot of changes to the 401k system since you started with it.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest changes for the better since you started in sort of the 401k business generally?
Well, it's become much more, the system itself has become much more beneficial to all workers. And I think the fact that the way the system is set up, they do non-discrimination testing, the technology advancements where everything's personalized to the individual, everything from a corporate level, you have all the information on every employee, know who's doing what. And it's just, technology has really changed the benefit itself. And again, I think the most dynamic thing has been the Pension Protection Act of 2006, which gave a safe harbor to plan sponsors that they can have automatic enrollment, which means you're in the plan unless you tell us you don't want to be in. They do automatic escalation that says, we're going to escalate your contribution every year unless you tell us not to. And then this whole thing, it used to be, prior to 2006, you defaulted to the most conservative option. And then for a younger employee, that is probably the riskiest investment you can have. So it defaulted you to age-appropriate funds. By that I mean, if you're a young worker, you're very heavily skewed to equities. As you get older and go into target date funds, they become more conservatively invested, and then they prepare, as you get closer to retirement, that they're very conservative.
And you make a great argument in the book. We talk about the innovation economy. There are so many folks in that field, of course, in this room, but certainly in Boston and in New England. Can you talk a little bit about, expand on what you say in the book, that 401k is really important to the capital markets?
Yeah, I'll get into that because it is savings equals growth. And one of the things that's been discussed time and time again is we need to get this country growing faster again. If we get people saving more, these monies go into capital markets, invested bonds, stocks, et cetera. They really drive GDP, they drive growth of the economy. And having people participating in the system, they then have a vested interest in the economy, their own future, that they're working to save for retirement, which I think is, besides the economic effect of it, the psychological effect on the country by having people participate in the system where they're helping contribute to the retirement would benefit everyone.
Bob, what are the barriers for innovators? This sounds like it ought to make sense. What are the barriers to putting a 401k plan in your particular company at any stage?
The barriers are, there's not very many. And the fact that many of the costs of these plans could be put on the participant. A lot of companies say, well, they're expensive. The cost can be borne by the participants. So the barriers are not great. Usually what you have are smaller companies where you have the CEO acting as CFO and head of HR at all that says, I don't have time for it. This is one of the reasons why, again, I mentioned that workplace savings today covers 60% of working Americans. How do you get the other 40? You have a simplified version of workplace savings, and they're called multi-employer plans. You can do them today, but they have to be associated businesses, like American Dental Association could have it, or automobile dealers could have it. But I would love to see it where they allowed private companies like an Empower to establish a multi-employer plan for everyone in Massachusetts, that they can participate in a simplified version where all they have to worry about is payroll deduction into the savings plan.
So if you're talking to companies at all different levels, and many of them represented in this room, so if you think about them as sort of the Red Sox organization, single A, double A, triple A, and those folks that are big public companies, what's your advice to companies at all of those levels? We'll start with the big ones. This is sort of the easiest one. They ought to have a 401k plan. What else?
Well, again, I'm going back to the Pension Protection Act, which was critical to the success of these plans. And again, the evidence is in. There are millions of workers at all economic stratospheres that are on track to have 100% plus income replacement at retirement.
And why is that? How did they do that?
Well, automatic enrollment is a choice that the plan sponsor can make. And he or she, they can set it up however they want. They don't even have to.
So you're at your company, we have a 401k plan, you're in, unless you opt out.
That is correct. And I think it should be like healthcare, that if someone chooses not to participate, every fall when you register for your healthcare plan, you're in the workplace savings unless you tell us not to.
Okay. Behavioral finance. I think you talk about the Pension Act in 2006 of really codifying behavioral finance. So this is just easier.
Yeah, Dr. Thaler, who just won the Nobel Prize, this was all his work, this type of thinking. And like auto escalation, same thing. That every time I get a salary increase, my contribution to my retirement plan increases. And one thing the government did when they did automatic enrollment, they said, set it up at 3%. Well, 3% is not enough. And to me, it gave a false read to people that if I save at 3%, I'm going to be fine. You're not. You need to get up to 10 plus percent. And that could include the company match if your company provided a match. But you need to get there. And then obviously the investments are key.
So for those companies that are smaller and down in the chain, we'll call them the AAAs and the AA's, Bob. The entrepreneurs may have just gotten funded with venture money or private equity. We've got so many things we can be doing right now. Why is this a priority for them?
Well, again, there's been a study by the Employee Benefit Research Institute. It's a nonpartisan group in Washington that looks at retirement, health and welfare issues. And they looked at workers in middle to lower income. And if they have workplace savings available to them, close to 80% are saving for retirement.
Wow. Okay.
That exact same demographic group, middle to lower income, if they do not have workplace savings, around 5%, a little bit less than 5%, are saving for retirement. So providing these plans provide a tremendous benefit to the employee that is all companies should at least make a decision that this is in the best interest of my employee, or I have a better reason not to do it.
Could be key to retaining and attracting employees, which all of these companies need in an economy where we have almost full employment.
Yeah, it is very interesting that there have been a lot of studies, and I'll never forget, we had General Motors 401k plan when they had a defined benefit at all, and they actually surveyed their employees, what is your most valuable benefit? And 401k was rated ahead of healthcare.
Wow. All right. So let me take you down one more tier. So maybe we're an angel-backed company and the like. Half of the people who are part of the team, they're contractors, Bob. I can't put them in the 401k plan. What's the alternative for them? You gave a terrific, I think, example. Talk about it as Uber savings. Talk a little bit about that. What do you say to that CEO? What does she do when half of her workforce, they're contractors?
Well, we need to set up this multi-employer plan or a simplified IRA system.
Talk about that, because you spent some time on that. I thought it was really innovative.
Well, the key thing, I mentioned the middle to lower income. If you have it, 75% plus participate or saving for retirement. The other 5% don't. This 5% that don't could sign up for an IRA tomorrow, but they don't. And that's where payroll deduction comes in. And that's where making it easy to succeed and hard to fail. And that's what the goal should be. And again, the key is payroll deduction, whether it be universal IRA, some type of simplified plan that I talked about, multi-employer, where any employee, any company can participate in the plan. Very simplified would be a great step forward for this.
Do we need a legislative solution to do that?
You need a legislative solution, definitely.
And taking it even further down, you've got a terrific chapter in here on the gig economy. So we've got folks who just prefer being solo entrepreneurs, who have a great business. How do you think about Social Security, 401k, and retirement security for folks who are part of the gig economy?
Well, they have the same challenges. And again, how do you make it easy? And I go the multi-employer plan where anyone in the state can participate in it, or a universal IRA, anyone can participate. But again, it's an education process, the importance of savings, and I think the point you made earlier, that what a lot of people miss about savings is the impact it has on the economy. And it has enormous. We actually, several years ago, Oxford Analytics did a study, and ARC participated in it, Chamber of Commerce, Putnam, et cetera. And the impact of 1% increase in savings to GDP is enormous. And we just need to get people thinking that way. And again, in Washington, they want to grow the economy. This 2% or 2% less, a new normal, so to speak, doesn't make it. It doesn't work. So how do you get people to, how do you get the economy to grow faster? It's getting people saved, providing a better retirement system, and that's what it's all about.
And it's cultural. You talk about this in the book, that if we could get people thinking about a birthright IRA, the minute that child's born, find a way to give them $1,000. By the time they're 70, the numbers were staggering that you presented. They'd at least have that. Doesn't solve the whole problem.
No, one of the keys of investing is the power of compounding.
Right.
So the longer you're in an investment vehicle, the faster it grows. And Albert Einstein, who's pretty smart, I guess, said the most powerful force in the world is the power of compounding. And if we could, the idea is when a baby's born in America, put $1,000 in their name, it's their account, and they cannot touch the money till they're age 70. And that would get them to see savings, the power of compounding. You can contribute to the account. If something would happen, they would pass away, it would go to their heirs. But again, it would get people participating in the system. And again, when they turn 70, they would have, close to $100,000.
And as you say, the power of compounding, but really the impact culturally. People would start to think about savings from the beginning.
Definitely. And they actually did this plan in the UK for about 6 or 7 years, and when the recession hit, they stopped it. But to me, it is a cheap way to fund the retirement system and get everyone involved in capital markets, savings, and what it can mean to them.
So we talked a little bit about legislative solutions and the like. It's on everyone's mind. Tax policy. What should we be thinking about? What should we want, Bob? When we hear all of the politicians talk about tax cuts and entitlements and the like, what should we be thinking about and what should we want?
Well, to me, it's not good that the whole retirement issue always comes up when you talk about tax reform. And you go back to '86 tax reform when they really went after IRAs, Camp's proposal several years ago, they want to cap 401ks. It just becomes an easy source of revenue to offset tax cuts in other areas. But it's very misleading because the Congressional Budget Office just looks at expenditures over a 10-year period. And that's a window. So anyone 55 or younger contributing to the retirement plan pre-tax, that money is considered lost from Treasury forever. And it's not. It comes back. Now, there are tax expenditures, and that's charitable deductions, deduction of state and local taxes, many other things we all know, but those are lost to Treasury forever. Retirement is a tax deferral where it comes back to Treasury when you retire at ordinary income, no matter if it's capital gains, whatever. And I really think to go after tax cuts on the back of working Americans and really hurt the retirement pool for a long time is misguided legislation. And there is a discussion right now that's on the floor. The president tweeted. How else would we find out? Tweeted that they're not going to touch 401k. It's too important to middle America. And I'm afraid if they really make it all after-tax contribution, and after-tax means you contribute after you pay your taxes, money grows tax-free and comes out tax-free, not necessarily awful, but it discourages the people we want participate in these plans. That's middle to lower income workers and younger people. They look at that pre-tax contribution as the government helping them make the contribution. Again, that revenue does come back down the road to Treasury, but I think it's something we have to be on guard. Now, I do have a call tomorrow morning at 7:30 with Secretary Brady of the Ways and Means that has an idea he wants to run by me, so we'll see where they are.
So you'd like to switch them from a perspective of, gee, we won't touch it, to we really got to expand this. We've got to think about this.
You got to expand it. And what really bothers me is if they make it all after tax without any type of adjustment, it'll hurt the people we want to help the most. And I just, it bothers me. So if a compromise would be the first 6,000, 8,000, you can give 18,000 now if you're 50 or younger. If they said the first half of that was pre-tax, your election, and everything over that was after tax, I think something like that's workable. But don't discourage people from getting in these plans and participating at the right level, especially the people that will need it the most.
So for those entrepreneurs in the room who are thinking about this, are you handicapping this? You have a sense of where this is going to go?
Again, every tax legislation, especially tax reform, retirement's been hit. And I just...
You think it's wrong-headed?
Definitely.
What advice would you give most folks who are starting businesses, because we have such a robust startup innovation community here? What are the 2 or 3 things that you tell them to think about and not put on the back burner? Sounds like you've got to have a 401k.
Some type of retirement plan and payroll deduction, and encourage people to participate as soon as possible, and when they get to the point they can afford a match, in other words, any amount, that encourages people to participate more, contribute more. And a lot of this is, as you said, behavioral psychology. And the sooner you can get people saving, participating in the system, the better off they're going to be, and I think the better off the work environment the company will be.
To develop a culture of savings, and as you said, it becomes one of the #1 benefits that people think about, that they can put this away, and that their founding team, their CEO, thought about this for them. Bob, where can people learn more? Obviously, I'm certainly going to encourage folks to read your book From Here to Security. Where else can they learn? Are there, when you're thinking about these kind of things, are there other resources, magazines, sources, blogs that you think about and look at and say, gee, that would be, for folks who are thinking about this and want to learn more, what do you tell them? What are those other resources?
There's a lot on the Department of Labor website about retirement. However, I do think the book is all-encompassing.
I do too. I do too. So we have some time for questions, Bob, and someone here in the back, Mike in the back, will hand you a microphone and take your question.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
What's your take on allowing loans from 401k? Because you get all this leakage coming out of the system.
Yeah, the leakage is more from people leaving a job and taking their 401k out. Loans to me are part of this psychology thing that if I know I have access to my money when I need it, I'm going to contribute more. And only 20% of workers actually utilize the loan feature.
20%, that's it.
Yeah, and it's set up so you can only borrow a certain amount, that you can take hardships, like we've had 3 major natural disasters, 4 really, and the fact that people can borrow from the 401k to carry themselves over this part, I think it's important. And again, people participate more and contribute more if they know they have access if they need it, and a majority do not.
Right here in the front.
Thank you. Fascinating. Thank you. You talked about compounding and that being Einstein smart, but most investment today are linked to stocks or to other things, and many years we see the amounts actually go down. So what do you tell the individual saver that is hesitant about investing in different vehicles and different firms that may go away?
Yeah. In investing, the longer your time horizon, the more predictable the market is. So if someone's investing out 30 years, I'll tell you stocks will outperform bonds, they'll outperform cash. As that time horizon becomes closer, it is less predictable. So if there is a need for the money, going back to the target date or lifestyle example, what they do is that they're very aggressive when retirement's 30 years out, 40 years out, and your commitment to equities slowly comes down over time. So when you are close to retirement, you don't get hit with that major market move. And to me, it's, the way people should invest. If you're going to need the money, 6 months from now, stay in money market or some short-term investment. If you need it 30 years from now, you want to be in the stock market no matter what level it's at.
Hello.
How are you?
Given the volatility that was just raised about the market, and the market does go up, the market does go down. I'm a financial advisor. I set up 401k plans. I also advise on non-market investments, so non-correlated assets in their portfolio. So it's typical that people talk about stocks and bonds only. I have not read your book, but knowing that there are alternatives, how do you address that as far as the percentage of overall savings? What's your take on that?
Alternatives?
Just anything up. Savings outside of 401k. So I set up 401ks every day, but I also have clients put money into other savings vehicles. Some are contractually obligated, some are market-based. Do you account for any of that in your book?
So the whole retirement security strategy, Bob, 401k plays a fundamental role. What are some others, or your thoughts on others around that?
Yeah, I think it's very individualized as you're on. I mean, if all you have is a 401k, there should be a strategy for that for retirement. If 401k is just part of your asset pool, it should be taken into consideration with the whole pool. It's not a standalone, and I think it's very individualized about what people should do. You know, even target date funds, which I've mentioned many times, but it's packaged advice. But it just addresses your retirement and when your retirement age is. So it's simplified. I think to technology and what's going on, and advisors like yourself, interesting, advisors play a dramatic role in retirement success. People that use an advisor earn 2% more a year and compound that over time, and they contribute more to their retirement plan. It's one of the key points of success, using advice to get you in the right place. But I think you should look at it holistic with other assets, no question about it.
Other question in the back.
Hi, great discussion. I happen to lead an organization focused on financial security for the bottom half of the country by income. And as I imagine you know, but just for the sake of some data point, the Federal Reserve research tells us that between 44 and 47% of the country couldn't handle a $400 emergency, right? So what that leads me to is I think there are a lot of minds thinking about whether the retirement system and industry players should also take on the challenge of helping people save for those $400 emergencies that presumably would be outside of the tax advantaged system. And I'd just really be interested, you know, if you have any thoughts on that, if that seems like an appropriate place for your industry to participate, or if there are reasons why you'd be cautious about that. And if I can sneak in another one, also be curious what you think of MyRA, rest in peace, the initiative from Treasury.
Yeah. I'll start out with MyRA. Was President Obama came out, and it was established an IRA. To me, it was just an IRA, and there was no structure around it, no payroll deduction at all, so it really died. I mean, Treasury canceled it. So conceptually, anything we can do to get people that are uncovered into saving for retirement, I'm for. I was very outspoken as a supporter of MyRA, because I think we need a way to get this 40% are uncovered. Now, a lot of people refer to the crisis because they hear the numbers 40% uncovered. I would tell everyone that defined benefit in its heyday only covered 30% of working Americans. So we've doubled the people that are covered under 401k, and 401k has been around since early 80s, but as America's retirement system, it hasn't even been a generation yet. So to judge whether it works or doesn't work, what I can show you is that for millions of working Americans, there's a thing called retirement readiness. What part of your final income are you going to have on an annual basis of retirement? And there are millions of workers that are on track, and it's not the most wealthy. It goes all the way down the economical curve, so to speak. And there are millions of workers that have more than 100%, are on track to have more than 100% income replacement. So we know it works. This is not some idea that we're bending around. We've seen it work. Companies to do automatic enrollment, enroll people every year, automatic escalation, encourage people to save up to 10% a year, encourage advice. You're going to have a very happy workforce, and I think it's good for the country overall, because if you're dependent on just on Social Security, and there are people that's their total dependence, they're just going to have 40% or less income replacement retirement. And that's not enough for a dignified retirement that I think this country should be providing for people.
Thanks. So particularly for millennials, younger generation, a lot of people in the tech and innovation community, robo-advising is becoming much more popular, potentially not because people change from an advisor to a robo-advisor, but they go from nothing to a robo-advisor. And I know those advisors are pushing heavier and heavier now to get employers to start using them for their 401k. What effect do you think that has on the retirement system?
Number one, I think it's like, how should you interface with participants? I think you interface with participants on the way they want to. So whether it be, your phone, tablet, computer, however you want to deal with it, you should be able to deal with it. And the interesting thing about it is millennials are saving at a higher rate than baby boomers did.
Why, Bob?
I think, well, the system's taken hold as America's retirement system. We have the experience of baby boomers who are starting to retire, and they're saying, wow, without personal savings, most millennials don't think Social Security is going to be there for them. So they're participating. And how we deal with advice, and robo is one of them, I think is going to be personalized, and I think we're just on the initial stages of what that can do for individuals. But it's something we're certainly taking a hard look at.
We have time for one more question.
Okay.
Could you clarify what you mean by 100% income replacement? Because some people think that means that whatever you made in the last year or two is what you take into retirement.
It's this guy.
And that's not the case.
Well, it's over the last 5-year average in that range. And I think what most people miss is the costs you have while you're working are a lot different than when you're retired.
Right, but let's say hypothetically, you start your career out at $10,000 a year, just to keep the numbers simple. And the last year of your working, you make $100,000. Okay, so 100% income replacement really amounts to just a fraction of what you made over those cumulative years. It's not what you made in the last few years.
Yeah, your last working years of life, so the average of your last 5 years. If you have a windfall, I mean, that's not what retirement readiness shows. Windfalls, it shows where you're on track to save and what the replacement is to the income you're earning at that time. And if someone has a windfall, so be it. But I think one of the things where I was headed to here is people should become aware of the cost of medical care in retirement. And it varies by state, it varies by pre-existing health conditions, and that is some of the most, we actually show that here's what your retirement paycheck will look like at retirement. And this is how close you are to retirement ready. You can flip that check over and show you how much of that check will go to health care at different age points. And people are shocked to see at age 75 that half my income's going to health care. I'm using that as an example. And also, another tool we developed as if you're a 45-year-old and you make $100,000 a year, how do I look versus other 40-year-olds that make $100,000 a year? And it shows what percentile you're in of that group. And most people want to be in the top quartile. So people will change how much they're saving, raise it, and also when they look at the cost of healthcare and retirement, they raise it from there also. So there's many things, and it goes back to the psychology part of people realizing what's involved as I look at retirement and make decisions from that.
Perfect. The book is From Here to Security, How Workplace Savings Can Keep America's Promise. I hope you'll join us and Bob in the back to learn more about his book, perhaps get one signed, and I hope you'll join us as well tomorrow. Please join me in thanking Bob Reynolds.
Thank you.